Hey, what is up everyone? So recently I made a video ranking every season of Sea of Thieves, and that video is focused on all the new gameplay features and other additions that were added to the game during those different seasons. So it wasn't really focused on any events or cosmetics that were added during those seasons. So for this video, what I thought would be interesting is ranking every Plunder Pass we've ever gotten. So this video is pretty hard for me to do, to be honest. Currently, we've had 16 Plunder Passes in the game, and just going through them, there's been many really great Plunder Passes in the game, and there's been many mediocre ones. I wouldn't really say we've had any bad Plunder Passes, but there's been so many mediocre and so many great ones that it's hard to rank either group of them. So a lot of these were interchangeable. Let me know in the comments below as we go through them what your ranking is, but let's go ahead and dive into this. So we have 16 to go through. At our 16th spot, we have Season 3. I think this is going to be a little bit surprising. So Season 3 is an interesting one, I think, because Season 3 is the first season where we got a theme cohesive Plunder Pass. Plunder Passes before Season 3 were more of a hodgepodge type Plunder Pass, where it was just kind of random Pirate Emporium items thrown together. It was more of a quickly made season pass that Rare put together, kind of trying to jump on to the Battle Pass-esque live service model that other games were adapting to. So Rare was trying to get into that for Sea of Thieves, and they just kind of took older models of stuff that they already had sold in the Pirate Emporium, or stuff that they were planning to sell soon in the Pirate Emporium, and they just put it in the pass for the previous Plunder Passes. But this one was wholly unique to the Plunder Pass, and it was a unique theme around Greek mythology. It was kind of weird because it did not go along with the whole Pirates of the Caribbean season that was going on with 3 at the time, but that's kind of a trend that we saw with the Plunder Pass going forward anyways, that the Plunder Pass really has no connection to the season theme at all. So that's always been a weird thing in my mind, that I wish that the season theme kind of influenced the Plunder Pass. Never has in the past, but maybe we'll see that in the future. But with this one, for some reason, it just missed the mark in my opinion. I think the weapons are some of the worst looking weapons we've had in the game. The instrument that we have here, we only have one instrument skin here with the banjo. It just doesn't look that great in my opinion. I will say this pass does get a little bit of a boost with 2 emotes in here, and one of the emotes being a really nice one with the weapon emotes. That's pretty nice. You only get 1 sail, 1 flag, and 1 figurehead, which isn't great. So this was back before they did a whole ship set. This was back when you only got a few different pieces of a ship set. So you weren't getting the whole, you weren't getting the cannons or the capstan or anything. So you're only getting a figurehead, you're getting the sail, and a flag. And then you got a costume which didn't look that good. So as a whole, I didn't think this was a great package. And that's why Season 3 is at our worst spot. Next, we have a pretty recent season with Season 15. Now, if you saw my before you buy video on that, you know I did not like this Plunder Pass. Now, something I will mention here that I did mention with the previous pass, something I did factor into these rankings is how much ancient coins that you get with these passes, because obviously they've been fluctuating with each of the different passes. Before, you only got a little bit of ancient coins, and then they've kind of fluctuated over time, and I'll try to mention them when they've been significant. But as the later seasons have gone on, like Season 15, we've been getting 750 ancient coins. That previous one that we just talked about, that was 250. So that's why Season 15, I would say it was a little bit of a bump up than the previous one. But I would say these cosmetics are a little bit on par with each other. And it's kind of just a roll of the dice which one you say is better at the time. So on top of the ancient coins, I think one of the things that helps put Season 15 above Season 3 is that you just have a more cohesive set where you have the full ship set as opposed to just only a few pieces. With the previous season pass, you only had, a few pieces of the ship set, so you couldn't really fully utilize your Plunder Pass set. So with this one, at least you have, the whole, you have the capstan and everything to go along with this. And then you also have some clothing pieces to go along with it, but you do lack some additional stuff that you got with the previous one, like some of those emotes. Next up though, this probably goes down as our most controversial Plunder Pass ever in Sea of Thieves history, and this is Season 12's Plunder Pass. And the reason why this Plunder Pass was so controversial is because it allowed us to have a premium curse in the game. Now, up until this point, curses were viewed as an achievement. So similar to how you have the Xbox achievements or commendations or titles in the game, those were meant to be something that you earned. They weren't meant to be something that was just something that you buy in the game or it was given out to you. It was something like completing everything in a tall tale, or getting to level 100 in the hourglass mode, or anything like that. It usually represented that you did a lot of work to get to something. So when we saw that they were in the Plunder Pass, and then they were just basically being bought now, it represented a shift of what curses meant for Sea of Thieves. So a lot of people were pretty upset when they saw this in the game. Eventually, after this, we saw more premium curses come out into the Pirate Emporium. I think we only saw one. There might have been another one after that, but I don't think they sold too well, and they eventually stopped releasing more of them. So I think maybe they've cooled down on that, and they realized that that was a bad decision, so maybe we won out on that. But in terms of just talking about this pass in general, the curse does fit in with this pass. It's supposed to go with like a whole Medusa, Gorgon type of theme with this one. So you have like the stone curse to go along with that. You have the really nice looking figurehead. I think that's what put this Plunder Pass up a little bit more for me, is the figurehead. I think that looks really nice. And everything else on this isn't that great. I don't really like the clothing pieces that you get, which is really only the little headband here. I think a lot of the ship pieces outside of the figurehead aren't that great looking. The cannon flare is okay, but otherwise it's not the best. So they could have done a lot better with this, and obviously the curse caused a lot of controversy, and I think they've learned from that. But let's go ahead and move on to our next spot. So next we're going all the way back close to the beginning with Season 2. So Season 2 was back when they were doing the hodgepodge type of Plunder Pass like I was talking about. And the reason why I put this above some of the previous passes that we had is that there are some cosmetics in here that I just think are a lot better than the previous passes that we've gotten. And like I've said in previous Plunder Pass videos, if there's like a few cosmetics that you really like, then the Plunder Pass is probably worth it for you. So like for this pass, I see stuff like the sail, the figurehead, even the costume and the blunderbuss and the makeup. I think those couple things are really worth it for this pass, and then I think the two emotes are a nice bonus. The cutlass here, the cannon, and the flag, I could not really care less about, and the whole is just kind of whatever. So this pass is kind of, iffy on what you think about it, and I don't really like the hodgepodgey type of feel with this. I kind of like a more cohesive theme. However, the one nice aspect about a hodgepodgey type of Plunder Pass is that if you don't like one thing in the pass, like say for example the cannon here, I don't like the theme of that cannon that we have in this pass. I do like the theme of like the figurehead and the sail. So in some ways it works, in other ways it doesn't. Moving on, though, we have our current season with Season 16. So Season 16, I think this is more of a mediocre Plunder Pass. That's why it's kind of landing at this like lower middle part of this ranking here. So this one, I think it's fine. I think there's some good cosmetics in here, some ones that can go well with like other cosmetics that you might have already. And we've kind of talked about that in the before you buy video if you saw that one. I think the cannon flare on here looks pretty nice. I think the collector's figurehead looks pretty good, and the jacket and stuff, all that looks pretty nice. And obviously I like the cohesive set. You get a good amount of ancient coins with it. Fine. It's just fine. That's basically the best thing that I can say about it. So you can go watch that video, but that's pretty much my summation of that video, is that this Plunder Pass is just fine. So we can go ahead and move on to the next one, which is Season 11. This is another one that I wasn't the biggest fan of, because I think some things are a little bit mediocre with this, but there is certain cosmetics I do really like a lot, which has helped kind of boost it up a little bit more over some of the previous ones that we talked about. So certain things that I like a lot, it is like the gloves that we have here, which aren't really gloves, they're more like rings and like a wristband, but a lot of people comment on my videos asking what those are, asking what I'm wearing, and I wear them a lot in my videos. I really like them. I think they're a really nice addition, especially if you don't have like the distinction levels and you have like all the rings for like the level 500 for the trading companies or whatever you have for those. These are a nice alternative to that, so I really like using those. I think the cannon flare here is also really nice, and I think the hole, actually, I don't really talk about holes too much because I think they're usually pretty boring for a lot of this stuff, but the hole for this one's pretty nice. It has a very nice beachy type look that I like. And I really like the wheel. It has a very nice mosaic look to this. The rest of this set, I'm kind of whatever about. So in terms of this pass, I would say I get like a good 50% of this pass, which is pretty decent. But obviously we'd want a bit better than that. So let's go ahead and take a look at our next spot, which is Season 13. So season 13, this one was a little bit hard for me to place because I was kind of going back and forth with what I actually thought about it. There's stuff like, objectively, I think it's good pass, but I also just, don't really use these cosmetics ever. I think overall it's a really strong theming, and I think the cosmetics are really good looking. I just never really use them. I don't really care to use them. But I think all of the cosmetics look good in this set. I don't really have a problem with them. Even the basic version of the figurehead versus the collector's version look good. I would say the basic version of the sail versus the collector's version is very disappointing, and I'm not going to go into the collector's version versus the regular version of stuff in this video, because if you've watched any of the before you buy videos on any of these Plunder Pass videos over the last, 10 seasons basically, you've heard me talk about this a bunch, so I don't want to waste anyone's time on that. But they could have done better with that for this one. But overall, this is a pretty good pass, and I kind of wanted to place it somewhat in the middle here. I think it's just overall good, but it's not one that I typically use too often. So this next one takes us all the way back to the beginning with the very first Plunder Pass, which I'm actually surprised. I kind of thought this was going to be one that got knocked out very early on in this ranking, but it actually stuck out pretty much dead set in the middle here of this ranking. And this is the Season 1 Plunder Pass, and I actually think they did a pretty decent job with their first outing for a Plunder Pass. Obviously, it's definitely another hodgepodgey type of release, but the offering here was really good. I remember getting it back in the day and being happy with what I was getting, mostly because I didn't own any of these cosmetics already. A lot of it was from the Pirate Emporium already. So some of the stuff that you're getting in this was the unreleased Dark Warsmith weapon set. So you're getting the Dark Warsmith Blunderbuss, Reach, Pistol, and Cutlass. So I think that was a pretty good set, as opposed to what we saw with the Season 2 release, where you only got one of the weapons for that Plunder Pass. This one you got 4 weapons, so I think that's already a lot better. You also got the Silver Skull sails, which is pretty good. And then you also got some other stuff that was previously released, like the Ruby Splash Tail Monarch costume. Not a great costume, but it's kind of fun to meme around with sometimes, so it's kind of a nice one to have in your inventory. You also got the Ruby Splash Tail fishing rod to go with that. The Crab Dab, which is always a fun emote to have, and the Mysterious Casual emote. I like that one a lot. I use that often. The Bear and Bird reel, I don't really care about, and the Collector's Night Wolf figurehead is also a nice one to throw in there as well. So, not an overall amazing Plunder Pass, but definitely a decent one, and I think it was a nice first outing for them. And some decent cosmetics, honestly better than some of the stuff that we've been getting recently. I've said this before in some of my before you buy videos recently, but I would like to change up some of the formula of these recent Plunder Pass releases, where I would like to see some emotes getting added into the pass again, or just changing it up again. We used to get stuff like we just talked about with Season 1, where we got a fishing rod, or we got emotes in it, or we got a full weapon set. Bring back some of that stuff. I think that would be nice. I think changing it up some more would be very beneficial to the Plunder Pass to really breathe some more life into that. So as we move into the next half of this ranking, something that we haven't really talked about is how these ancient coins really factor into this ranking. I've kind of ignored it for most of this because a lot of what we talked about was either the first 3 seasons of the game, which, yeah, the ancient coins were still a problem back then, but we didn't really care about it too much back then as opposed to later on, or they were the later seasons where the 750 ancient coins were pretty standard. This second half, we talk about seasons where they kind of fluctuated. They were either 250, or they kind of jumped up a bit, or they went down. So I'll address them as we go along. So they did factor into this ranking, and I will address my thoughts on them, but I also put more emphasis into the cosmetics. So for this next one, we have Season 4. This only gives you 250 ancient coins with it, but I think this set and the cosmetics that we got with it are far better than a lot of the other Plunder Passes that we've talked about so far. The Jack-O-Looter costume here that we have is one of my favorite costumes in the game. I think the weapon skins that we got with this set are really great. I'm not the biggest fan of the ship cosmetics that we got here. I really like the wheel, but the sail and the hull, I'm not the biggest fan of. The flag isn't that great either. The emote is really nice in this set too. I think the emote really helps add a lot of value to this and kind of gives it a little bit of variety. I think this pass, if it was the 750 ancient coins, it's definitely a lot more of a contender for being a little bit higher in this list, but I bumped it down a little bit just because of that ancient coins. So moving on, we have Season 14. And this one I think is hard to remember. Like just looking at the thumbnail here, you would think, oh, this pass should definitely be towards the bottom. And I think at first glance, like I almost placed it at the bottom by accident. I'm like, oh yeah, this one, oh yeah, we need to place it at the bottom. And then I forgot, oh yeah, this is like actually one of my favorite passes that we ever gotten. And this one was really hard for me to place because I think by far it has my favorite figurehead that we've ever gotten in a Plunder Pass ever, and it's probably one of my favorite figureheads in the game, to be honest, outside of a few others. The capstan that you get with this is really cool. The cannon flare is amazing with this. I think the sail is decent, especially the collector's sail is pretty good. The mask is okay. I don't really care for the mask too much, but I know a lot of people like it. I don't think the rest of the clothing items are that great. I don't really wear a lot of things that are glowing too much because I do a lot of tucking and stuff, so obviously glowing items aren't going to be great for that. But for people that like glowy items, this is a really nice set for that. So there's some really amazing cosmetics in here, and I think if the whole pass was like on that level, this would definitely be shot up to the top, especially when you consider that's the 750 ancient coins like the rest of the modern Plunder Passes that we've had. This is definitely one of the best of the more recent Plunder Passes we've ever gotten. I just wish like the clothing items were a bit better, and I wish that we didn't have the basic versions of the figurehead and the sail. I think those are two of the things that are holding this set back. Moving on to Season 8. This one is a very interesting one. So obviously we talked about how ancient coins factor into all of this stuff. Now with this season, they played around with ancient coins a little bit early on of Sea of Thieves trying out this season structure. Now with Season 8, they tried out giving 1,000 ancient coins for finishing the Plunder Pass. Now, I don't know if they were referring to giving 750 in the Plunder Pass and then the 250 in the Free Pass, but in the content update video, which is what I'm using to doing the research again for this video, they claim you get 1,000 ancient coins with the Plunder Pass, and that's, what I'm using this to base off of. So you can fact check me if you remember differently. I'm going off of what they'd said, but I thought I remembered it differently. Might be wrong, but that's what they had claimed in here, that you get 1,000 ancient coins. So that's crazy. This is the only season where you get 1,000 ancient coins. It'd be 1,000 ancient coins from here, and then 250 from the Free Pass, which is huge. And the cosmetics are really great for this pass. So you get 3 outfits technically, but this is one of the first passes that we've had to talk about where they have like the progressive costume, where you basically have the same costume, but it has like 3 different styles basically. And you start off with like more of a basic style, and then that style kind of progresses and increases in more complexity. So as you level up, it gets more and more interesting. But there's some standouts with this pass, like the collector's figure I think looks really cool with like the bird on it. I really love the capstan here where you have like the knife in it and you can see the wanted poster on it in there. I think that looks really cool. And I think the costume's pretty good. I don't think it's the best costume that we've had in the Plunder Passes, but I think it's pretty decent. I think some of the styles here are pretty good. And I think even the basic version of the costume is really nice looking too. So overall, it's a very solid Plunder Pass. Next up, we have Season 10's Plunder Pass. Now this one I think people would disagree with me having this high on the list, but for me personally, I just really like this set. I don't know what about it. For me, it just kind of spoke to me. It's something that like where you objectively know that it's not as great of a set as some of the other stuff that you've even talked about. I think objectively it probably could be, more of the mediocre side of this list. But something about like the figurehead here where you have like the little like sparking of the like lightning bouncing off of it, the like very metal looking capstan, and even just like the jacket or like kind of like the lightning marks on the hole and all that stuff. Something about this I just really like. I don't know what it is about it. I've just always really liked this set, and it's just been one that I've been very fond of. I fully admit that it's probably a little too high on this ranking, but y'all can let me know in the comments below what you think about this set. Do you think it's a little too high on this list, or do you like it in this spot? So these next 4, I think, are objectively the most amazing Plunder Passes we've ever gotten in the game. I don't think there's any debate about it. There probably is debate about what order they're in, but I don't think there's really any debate that these should be considered the best that we've ever gotten. These are by far the most unique that we've ever had. I think a lot of the Plunder Passes that we've talked about previously up until this point are a lot of very samey looking together, like not a lot of risk taking in terms of like what they're doing with like the theme that they're going for, or like trying new things or very interesting things. A lot of muted colors, nothing that's like very striking looking or anything like that. Save for this next one at season 7. This is very striking looking, and if you see it on the seas, you're not mistaking it for any other ship set. So season 7 was a bit hard for me to actually rank because I actually wanted to put it a little bit higher on this list, but the more I thought about it, it made sense to bring it down a bit, and it's really because of the costume. I think the costume here, the progressive one where you have all 3 styles, is the best we've gotten in any Plunder Pass. The ship set, on the other hand, brings it down a lot, and also the lack of ancient coins as compared to a lot of the other Plunder Passes does not help it either. I don't think the ship set is as strong, even though there is some standouts. I think the cannon here is pretty nice and unique here. I really like the flag here. That's kind of like a palm leaf. I think that can go well with a lot of stuff, and it's just kind of fun. I think the capstan is also kind of cool, and I think the wheel is probably the best of the ship set parts here. But the costume is probably the best thing here. With a lot of the progressive costumes that we see in the game, usually you only really want to use like the final version of what it is, because usually that's the best version of it, obviously. But with this one, they made it so distinct between the 3 different versions of it that all 3 of them feel very good to use. I really like the very basic version of it. The second version of it is very distinct. They added like the little middle piece with like a headband and stuff. I think that looks really great. And the final version looks really great too. It looks kind of like a tribal warrior type thing. I think this costume is really strong and is what puts it up very high in this ranking. Following that, we have a truly wonderful looking ship set with the Season 6 Plunder Pass. So with Season 6, we have this very pink, floral looking ship set, and I absolutely love it. I don't think the costume is as strong as some of the other Plunder Passes. I don't really like it as much. I think the final form of it is kind of cool, where you get like this wooden form of it. I do think this pass is pretty cool that it has a tattoo, as opposed to some other Plunder Passes that haven't really experimented with having like a tattoo in the pass. But some of the real standouts for this pass for me is the hull. I think this is probably one of the nicest hulls that we have for the Plunder Pass. But the wheel is one of my favorites in the game. The capstan is amazing for this. I really like the basic version of the figurehead, which I think is a surprise for people, because usually the collector's version is the one that you really like. I think the basic version is far better than the collector's version. I really like the cherry blossom, like the pink flowers there instead. I don't really like the cannon here. I think the cannon's just kind of, a little bit too boxy. Not great. I will switch it out for one of my other cannons, but I typically do that for any ship set that I'm on, so I'm not really going to hold that against any of these Plunder Passes. Really strong Plunder Pass. I remember seeing this and immediately getting it because I was really excited about this when it came out. The only thing that I think is truly bad about this Plunder Pass is probably both of the sails. Both of them, both the basic version and the collector's version, I really don't like, especially the collector's version. I think, especially having like the symbol on it where it's like the gold on yellow. I don't know who in their graphic design department thought that was a good idea. As someone, I'm a graphic design major, or at least I was. That should just never be a good thing. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. You can't even barely see it on there. I don't know. Otherwise though, this is an amazing set. I just wish we had better sails to go with it. Next, in our second place spot, this was a hard one to place, but I think it really does deserve to be this high on the list, and it's the Season 9 Plunder Pass. So Season 9, also known as one of the longest seasons of Sea of Thieves, also has one of the best Plunder Passes in the game's history. This Plunder Pass is really a beautiful set, where it's this Stinging Tide set, where it all looks like this jellyfish, and it's another one that has like a progressive costume. And I don't really like the first version of the progressive costume, but the second and definitely the third one I think look really great. I think the thing that really holds this Plunder Pass up above a lot of the other ones that we just talked about is that basically every piece of this ship set is amazing. The cannon, the flag, the capstan, the whole wheel, both versions of the figure, both versions of the sail. I think they all look amazing. All of it. I think it all looks really great. I think you could interchange all of them. I think you still have the same problem that I talk about. Like, I don't think you need a basic version and a collector's version of cosmetics. I would rather get, a extra mode in there, or maybe a stinging tide weapon in there or something like that. But for what we got here, I think this is a really strong Plunder Pass right there. Finally though, at our number one spot for the best Plunder Pass ever in Sea of Thieves history, it's Season 5's Plunder Pass. Now this one's going to be a little bit of an interesting pick, because I don't think it's the best chip set, I don't think it's the best costume, and it doesn't give you the most ancient coins, as obvious from what we talked about with Season 8. But I do think it's the best overall package, and it also was the thing that helped change the Plunder Pass history. It was the first season that actually introduced the increased ancient coins, where it brought it up from the 250 ancient coins to 750 ancient coins. So it brought that up, and then the season after that, with Season 6, they actually dropped it back down to 250. They only tried it for Season 5, and then they kind of saw the people's reaction. No one liked it when they changed it back for Season 6. So they kind of tried it again a little bit after that for Season 8, and then it kind of stuck around afterwards. But this season's pass, I think, does a lot of things right. The costume here, I think, is really great. I think all versions of the costume look really good. I really like the final version of it, and I think the emote that's built into the costume is really cool too, where you built like the little ice sculpture. I think the ship set does a lot of stuff that a lot of the Plunder Pass ship sets should do, and things that I've talked about in previous Plunder Pass videos, say for the hull, for example. In recent Before You Buy videos, I've talked about how the hulls for these recent Plunder Passes, they haven't really done anything interesting with them. They very much are basic, and they look like something you'd find it in the outpost shops. This one is definitely something that looks premium. It has like this nice glow to it, all these colors and stuff. It looks very nice and premium. This whole set is a very premium feeling set, and it feels worth the money. And I think that's what helps put this up above a lot of the other Plunder Passes in this list. You also get a pretty great emote with this set. You get some pretty cool figureheads with this. You get a pretty cool sail with it. I think the capstan with this is really cool. Overall, I think it's just a really strong Plunder Pass, and I think it's a great model for what the modern Plunder Pass should be. Now with that said, I think they should still experiment and try new things. I think, change stuff up. Throw a weapon set in here sometimes, maybe throw, a tattoo in there, just change it up here and there. But, having the emotes in here, I think is a good model of like just trying new things. And speaking about like the costume in here, I miss having costumes in the Plunder Pass as opposed to what we get now with clothing items. I know people like the clothing items because it gives you a little bit more flexibility of like mixing and matching them with other stuff in the game. But I think with the costumes, you're able to get a lot more value with them. Not only because they're easier to switch between, because you're able to just kind of like pick them up because they're kind of like more like presets rather than, having to like grab a lot of different stuff and sift through a bunch of different things. But they were able to be a lot more creative. Like with this costume here, you got to have like this whole arm that's like hanging off your body because it's like all frozen and in pieces and stuff. You can't do that with a clothing piece item. I mean, maybe you can if you do like a curse and stuff, but then that gets into the whole problem that we had with Season 12. And obviously people didn't like that. So this ended up being a pretty long video, and I think I've covered all of these Plunder Passes in decent amounts, but if you want to hear more in depth about a certain Plunder Pass, definitely check out my channel. I've done a Before You Buy video, I think, on almost all of these Plunder Passes, if not all of them, so you can definitely check that out on my channel. But if you did enjoy this video, it'd be great if you like and subscribed, and definitely let me know in the comments below what is your ranking of all these different Plunder Passes, or just let me know which one's your favorite. That's all I have for this video. If you enjoyed, it'd be great if you like and subscribed, and until next time, thanks for watching, I'll see y'all later. Bye y'all.